Another $1 million migration bill just landed. Our legacy systems are bleeding us dry feeding that CRM.
But what if the data didn't need to move at all? What if Claude could just reach in?
That's IT fantasy. We're chained to these cloud CRMs. Our data tolls are astronomical.
Fantasy. Or a direct challenge to CRM's data stronghold, leveraging new protocols.
Look, if you are listening to this, you're running enterprise architecture. You're a senior CRM platform owner, an AI practitioner, or a CIO staring down a massive budget deficit caused by your data integration pipelines.
Exactly. And we are bypassing the marketing fluff entirely today. Welcome to the war room.
Yeah, the core tension we are dissecting in this deep dive is this. The era of paying exorbitant data tolls to migrate local ERP information into expensive traditional CRM clouds just to orchestrate enterprise customer experience is, well, it's officially being challenged by in-place AI reasoning.
Right. We are deconstructing the challenge laid out in the latest CRM position research. Specifically, we're looking at how the Model Context Protocol, MCP, allows Anthropic's Claude to reason directly on legacy databases.
Without lifting and shifting a single byte of data, which is huge.
It's massive. We are going to look at the physical realities of your infrastructure, the actual latency of your queries, and, the uncomfortable truth about what your CRM vendor is really charging you for.
So let's lay out the operational reality that has dominated our lives for the last decade, right? The traditional CRM playbook has operated on a single, non-negotiable mandate.
The centralization mandate.
Exactly. To achieve any semblance of unified CX orchestration, every piece of customer context, every historical transaction, every legacy ERP record must be physically migrated into their proprietary cloud.
And that is the architectural bottleneck breaking IT budgets right now. I mean, it is an architectural failure disguised as an industry best practice.
Yeah.
And we need to stop pretending it's anything else.
Really?
Let's look at the physical reality of migrating data from local ERPs to traditional CRMs. Every gigabyte you move incurs a cost.
Oh, absolutely. But it's not just the storage, is it?
No, not at all. You are paying for the ETL middleware, the extract, transform, load tools. You're paying for the API calls to extract that data from your local server.
Right, the MuleSoft or Informatica licenses.
Exactly. And then you're paying for the massive compute required to transform your messy 20-year-old schema into the rigid object model demanded by the CRM.
Which never fits perfectly, by the way.
Never. And then, after you've paid all that, the traditional CRM vendor hits you with the ultimate penalty: proprietary cloud storage fees for data you already owned.
Yeah, and it's never a one-and-done lift and shift. Anyone who has survived a digital transformation knows the initial migration is just the down payment.
Right. It's a recurring nightmare.
It really is.
Yeah.
Every synchronized table requires continuous, agonizing maintenance. We are talking about daily delta loads failing at 3 a.m.
Oh, the conflict resolution.
Yeah. When a sales rep updates a record in the CRM, but an automated billing process deletes it in the ERP, you end up dedicating a massive portion of your engineering overhead just to keeping two identical databases from cannibalizing each other.
Precisely. And this is the fundamental shift in the market that the research exposes. CRMs have quietly transitioned.
What do you mean by transition?
Well, 10 years ago, they were purely operational tools, right? Designed to facilitate sales routing and customer service workflows. Now, they have become expensive data toll collectors.
Data toll collectors are like that.
Because the true enterprise value is no longer in their rigid orchestration flows or their user interfaces. Their valuation, their entire business model, is based on holding your operational data hostage within their ecosystem.
Okay, wait. I'm going to push back on that immediately.
Yeah.
Because you're ignoring why we built these architectures in the first place.
Am I?
Yes. Look, without moving data into the highly available CRM cloud, CX orchestration has historically been entirely impossible. You cannot run real-time customer service workflows against a 20-year-old on-premise Oracle database.
Or a legacy AS400 mainframe, sure.
Right. Those systems are incredibly brittle. They were built for batch processing, not for handling thousands of concurrent REST API requests required by modern front-end dashboards.
That's a fair point.
I mean, if you don't migrate that data to the CRM cloud, the moment 100 call center agents hit refresh on a customer profile, the legacy system falls over. It locks up completely.
I agree. Under the old paradigm of brute force querying, the cloud CRM was a necessary evil. That was the technical reality 5 years ago. But that reality is no longer the case.
How so?
While the latency and concurrency arguments were valid when we were talking about thousands of human agents triggering massive, poorly optimized SQL queries through a bloated UI.
Okay, yeah, humans are inefficient at querying.
Exactly. But when you introduce a deterministic reasoning engine leveraging a standardized protocol, the query load changes fundamentally.
Explain the physics of that to me, because an AS400 doesn't magically get more RAM just because an AI is talking to it instead of a human.
No, it doesn't get more RAM, but it gets queried with microscopic precision. When a human agent searches for a record, the CRM typically runs a wildcard search across massive tables, pulling down hundreds of rows to display in a list view so the human can visually parse it.
All right, it's just dumping everything onto the screen. Wildly inefficient.
When Claude, using MCP, needs context, it doesn't pull down lists to browse. It interprets the exact parameters of the customer's problem. Then it formulates a highly specific, indexed query for the exact single row or telemetry log required.
Oh, wow.
It extracts that specific data point and drops the connection. The compute load on the legacy system is a fraction of what a traditional middleware sync or a human-driven dashboard requires.
I see. So instead of a fire hose of raw data constantly syncing to the cloud just in case an agent needs it, it's a sniper shot exactly when it's needed.
Precisely, a sniper shot.
But that still leaves us with the cost of the current infrastructure. I mean, the traditional CRM ingestion model is like being forced to pay a massive recurring premium on a luxury toll road.
Just to drive your own car.
Right, just to drive your own car, your own raw data to your own destination, which is resolving your customer's issue. You are paying a third party an astronomical markup for the privilege of accessing historical transactions you already generated.
And the cost isn't just financial, it's temporal.
Time is money.
Absolutely. Contrast the speed of modern business requirements against those agonizing multi-month timelines of traditional ERP to CRM integration projects.
Oh, I've lived this nightmare.
Right. The business asks for a new data point. Let's say a new IoT sensor reading from your product needs to be visible to the call center to predict failures.
Yeah, the business wants that sensor data on the agent's screen tomorrow. And IT looks at the architecture and says, it'll take 6 months.
Exactly. 6 months.
Because we have to map the new schema, build the new MuleSoft pipeline, test the batch sync, ensure it doesn't break the existing data model, and then deploy the UI update to the CRM.
It's exhausting just talking about it.
6 months and $500,000 just to show one new temperature gauge to a customer service rep.
Which brings us to the operational bypass. If the current migration approach is a costly, slow failure, we must examine what happens when a model provider brings a protocol that fundamentally ignores the toll booth entirely.
The MCP.
Yes, the CRM position research outlines this shift, and we are going to look at 3 real war room scenarios extracted directly from that data.
All right, let's get into the weeds. Scenario 1, the legacy ERP hostage crisis.
A classic.
Picture an enterprise trying to orchestrate a unified customer experience. Let's say it's a heavy machinery manufacturer. They have critical historical transaction data, 15 years of complex supply chain records, bespoke warranty histories, part replacements.
All trapped.
Yep, trapped in an on-premise, highly customized legacy SQL server.
The traditional CRM vendor's solution to this scenario is entirely predictable. They will walk into the CIO's office and demand a massive cloud storage expansion.
They won't call it a data toll, of course.
No, never. They will brand it a data cloud or a customer 360 initiative. But operationally, it is an extortionate storage fee. They mandate that you must ingest this massive volume of legacy warranty data into their architecture if you want your AI tools or your agents to be able to use it.
And the enterprise usually capitulates. I mean, I've signed off on those bills myself. You feel like you have no choice.
Because the business demands it.
Right. The Tier 1 customer service agents absolutely need that 15-year warranty data to process complex returns or dispatch field technicians. If that data isn't centralized in the CRM, the agent is flying blind.
Exactly. Picture the day-to-day reality of that agent. They are on the phone with an angry site manager whose crane just broke down.
I stress.
Very. The agent is desperately toggling between a shiny, expensive CRM interface and a green screen terminal emulator tied to that legacy SQL server.
Copy and pasting serial numbers between windows.
Yes, they are driving average handle time through the roof, making mistakes, and infuriating the customer. So IT pays the toll. You buy the massive CRM storage upgrade, you spend a year building the ETL pipeline, and you pray the sync doesn't fail overnight.
But the research is saying we had no choice. Past tense, had.
Past tense. Enter Anthropic's modeled context protocol.
So MCP changes the physical architecture of the data retrieval. We need to be incredibly precise about what this is because it sounds like magic. And frankly, enterprise architects don't buy magic.
It's not magic. It's a standardized client-server architecture. MCP acts as the operational die-pass. It allows that 15 years of warranty data to remain safely, securely in the legacy SQL database.
It never moves.
It never moves.
Let's use an analogy here to ground this. Traditional CRM integration is like forcing every foreign branch of your company to photocopy and mail all their physical files to a massive warehouse at headquarters, just so the CEO can occasionally read them.
It costs a fortune in shipping.
The warehouse rent is astronomical, and by the time the CEO reads the file, the information is a day old. What is the MCP equivalent?
The MCP equivalent is giving the CEO a secure, direct phone line to call a local branch manager.
Oh.
The CEO asks a specific question. The branch manager walks over to the local filing cabinet, reads only the necessary file aloud, translates it on the spot, answers the question, and hangs up.
So the file never leaves the building.
The file never leaves the building. Headquarters doesn't pay for warehouse storage.
So operationally, when that call center agent needs the warranty history for the broken crane, Claude uses the MCP standard to dynamically query the local ERP in real time.
Yes.
It extracts only the specific warranty parameters for that specific serial number, synthesizes the insight like, yes, this part is under warranty, but only if it was serviced in the last 6 months, and returns that answer to the agent.
Without the data ever being stored in the CRM, you bypass the ETL pipeline, you bypass the MuleSoft or Informatica transformation layer, you completely bypass the CRM cloud storage fees.
Wow.
The model acts as the translation layer between the user's natural language intent and the complex archaic schema of the legacy database.
Okay, let's escalate this to scenario 2. Because reading a static warranty table is one thing. What about massive, unstructured, high-velocity data?
Ah, yes. The direct reasoning bypass.
Or what the research calls the Claude co-work intervention.
This is where traditional architectures truly break down.
Right. Let's say we have a live CX incident. A Tier 1 enterprise customer is experiencing a critical service outage on a SaaS platform. Resolving this requires immediate context from 2 places: the recent front-end support tickets and deep local database telemetry logs.
Server spin-ups, error codes, network latency drops.
Exactly. That telemetry data is far too voluminous, far too noisy to ever sync to a cloud CRM. The storage costs alone would bankrupt the department in a week.
In the traditional model, you're waiting for a nightly batch sync that aggregates and summarizes that telemetry into something the CRM can afford to digest.
Which means during a live outage, the CRM is completely useless.
Completely useless. It only knows what happened yesterday. The agent cannot orchestrate a resolution because the CRM is fundamentally out of sync with the operational reality of the local systems.
The customer is screaming, and the agent is waiting for a Tier 3 engineer to manually run queries in Databricks or Snowflake.
Operationally, break down what reasoning directly means in this incident. How does MCP actually execute this without latency destroying the customer interaction?
Yeah, because if I ask an LLM to read 1,000,000 rows of telemetry data, the token limit will explode, and the response time will be measured in minutes, not milliseconds.
This is where we have to understand how MCP bridges the gap between the LLM and the local compute. Direct reasoning means zero replication latency, but it does not mean dumping 1,000,000 rows into Claude's context window.
Thank you. Because that's the massive misconception out there.
Exactly. Because we aren't waiting for a middleware tool to package the data, map it, and commit it to the CRM database, we eliminate the integration bottleneck. Instead, Claude, equipped with MCP, interprets the customer's live problem from the chat interface.
So it understands the intent.
Right. It understands I need to look for network dropouts for user ID 459 in the last 10 minutes.
And then what? Does it just write raw SQL?
Not directly, no. The local MCP server, which your engineering team controls, exposes specific tools. One tool might be an analyze_recent_telemetry function, taking user ID and time frame as parameters.
So it's structured.
Highly structured. Claude sends a JSON request to invoke that tool. The local server executes the heavy lifting. It runs the optimized SQL against your local Snowflake or PostgreSQL instance.
Okay, so the local DB does the hard compute.
Yes. It aggregates the errors locally. Then it passes back a concise summary of the anomalies to Claude. Claude reads that synthesized result in memory, identifies the root cause, and provides the agent with the immediate operational insight.
So it pulls exactly what it needs, when it needs it, reasons over it, and then discards the raw data. It doesn't persist those logs in the CRM.
Zero cloud storage fees. Immediate extraction of insight. The agent gets a plain English explanation, something like, the customer's instance crashed because of a memory leak in the latest deployment. Downgrade them to version 4.2.
And the CRM never saw the raw logs. That's
Our
incredible.
web is everything.
Which moves us to scenario 3. And this is where the architecture truly fractures. This is the part of the research that should be keeping CRM executives awake at night. The model provider CX orchestration challenge.
It is an existential shift.
Let's follow the logic. As we evaluate the architecture of Claude Cowork, a glaring realization hits the enterprise platform owner.
The center of gravity moves.
Exactly. If Claude can reason over local data via MCP, if it can pull warranty data from the AS400, if it can pull telemetry from Snowflake, and synthesize all of that into a next best action for the agent, then the orchestration layer just shifted. It physically moved from the CRM to the model provider.
That is the existential threat to the traditional CRM. For 2 decades, the CRM was the brain of the operation. It was the orchestrator. But in this new architecture, the CRM is no longer the orchestrator.
This is a dumb user interface.
It's a glorified chat window. The model, Claude, is doing the heavy lifting of contextualizing data, applying business logic, and determining the next best action.
Okay, wait. Let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
I need to channel my Chief Information Security Officer for a second.
Go ahead. I know it's coming.
You're walking into my office telling me you want to bypass the CRM security model. The CRM has governed our access control, our field-level security, our compliance, and our audit trails for a decade.
It's the trusted system of record.
It is a hardened fortress. Now, you want to punch a hole in our firewall, install a piece of open-source middleware downloaded from GitHub, and let a third-party black box AI model start reading our unencrypted Tier 1 customer financial records and telemetry logs.
The panic is palpable.
I'm not just saying no, I'm revoking your badge. Is this actually safe? Can a model provider handle enterprise CX orchestration without that legacy governance framework? Are we just opening up our most vulnerable legacy databases to an LLM?
Your CSO's reaction is exactly why traditional CRM vendors are still making billions. They sell fear. But that reaction is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how the model context protocol operates mechanically.
How so?
The governance doesn't degrade. The governance actually improves.
Prove it. How does opening my database to an external AI improve my security posture?
Because the security remains entirely at the local database level, fully under your control. With MCP, you are not handing Claude the master credentials to your entire ERP.
Right.
You are not giving it a blank text box to write raw SQL injection attacks against your production environment.
All right, then what are we doing? Operationally, what is happening?
You deploy an MCP server locally inside your firewall adjacent to the database. That MCP server is written and controlled by your engineers. It defines strict, explicitly coded, read-only tools that the model can invoke.
So you're hard-coding the boundaries.
Yes. You are enforcing role-based access control at the source. If Claude tries to ask for data outside of those predefined tools, the local server simply rejects the request. Claude only knows the tools exist. It doesn't know the underlying database structure.
So if the tool is get_customer_status for an account ID, the local server runs the predefined SQL statement, grabs the status, and returns it. Claude can never say, drop table customers.
Exactly. The local server wouldn't know what to do with that request. And more importantly, think about the alternative. The CRM vendor wants you to replicate all of your sensitive legacy data into their public cloud.
Which is a massive risk.
Centralizing all your enterprise data into a single SaaS cloud creates an immense, highly lucrative attack surface. It is a massive cloud CRM data honeypot.
Right. If someone breaches the CRM, they get the keys to the entire kingdom, the billing, the telemetry, the warranties, the PII, everything.
Precisely. By leaving the data distributed in its native environments behind your own firewalls and querying it ephemerally via MCP, you drastically reduce your data exfiltration risk. The model provider never trains on this data. It only reasons over it in context, and then the context is flushed.
So the data is transient.
Completely transient. Your CISO should be championing this architecture, not fighting it.
Look, if you are running enterprise infrastructure, these are the architectural shifts that will either promote you to the C-suite or bankrupt your department. You need to subscribe to the CRM Position podcast right now.
Highly recommended.
This is where we break down complex AI and CRM platform shifts without the hype. We don't read you marketing narratives or press releases. We give you the real operational state-of-the-art so you can stay ahead. Hit subscribe, and let's get back to the playbook.
We need to move from theory to execution. Understanding the architecture is fine, but we need to put this into practice.
Right. Let's operationalize it.
Based on the research, we have distilled a practitioner's 5-step playbook for operationalizing MCP direct reasoning. The goal here is concrete, measurable ROI. We are moving away from expensive cloud migrations and adopting in-place reasoning.
Step 1. Audit your local and legacy systems for MCT readiness.
This requires a massive mindset shift for platform owners. For years, your audit process was, what data do we need to move to the cloud?
Every discovery phase starts with that question.
Exactly. You need to flip that entirely. Do not look at what data needs to move. Look at what data can stay exactly where it natively lives.
You need to identify the bleeding necks. Look for the high-value local ERPs that are currently draining your budget in CRM cloud syncs. Where are you running massive, fragile ETL jobs every night just to provide read-only context to your agents?
That's the key, read only.
Right. Where are your middleware licenses costing more than the hardware they run on? That is your prime target for an MCP bypass. If the data is only being used for reference, it has no business being replicated.
Which leads directly to step 2. And this is the directive that will cause the most friction in your organization. Halt the lift and shift migration pipelines.
Okay, I have to stop you. You're telling senior practitioners to walk into the office on Monday morning and freeze their multi-million-dollar CRM migration projects.
Yes.
You're telling them to halt digital transformation initiatives that have been on the roadmap for 18 months. Do you know the political capital required to look the CFO in the eye and say, that transformation project we spent $2 million on? I'm pausing it.
I do. Because if you don't pause it, you're going to spend another $5 million building an architecture that is already obsolete.
Ouch.
You must stop feeding the toll machine. If your migration project is predicated on the assumption that data must be centralized in the CRM to be useful for AI or orchestration, that architectural premise is factually, technically dead.
It's the sunk cost fallacy. We spent $2 million, so we have to spend 5 more.
Exactly. Freeze the pipeline until you rigorously evaluate the direct reasoning alternative. Do not commit another dollar to proprietary cloud storage or sign a multi-year middleware renewal until you have tested MCP. Take the political hit now, because the financial savings in year 2 will make you a hero.
Let's talk about the actual deployment. Step 3. Establish the Anthropic MCP bridge. We need to define the operational reality of connecting Claude to the local database. Because again, it's not magic. Someone has to write code.
It is a protocol deployment, not a massive data replication project. Operationally, you are spinning up an MCP server. Usually, this is a very lightweight Node.js or Python application.
Okay, so a standard microservice.
Very standard. You deploy this within your secure infrastructure in your DMZ or adjacent to the legacy database.
So a developer sits down, writes a Python script using the open source MCP SDK. What does that script actually do?
The script does 2 things. First, it securely connects to your legacy database using standard credentials. Second, it exposes specific controlled functions to Claude via a JSON schema.
Can you give an example?
Sure. For example, the developer writes a function called get_customer_order_history. That function contains a hard-coded SQL query that joins the right tables and filters by the customer ID.
And then Claude simply sees a list of available tools. It knows getCustomerOrderHistory exists, and it knows it requires a customer ID as an argument.
Precisely. Claude cannot run arbitrary SQL. It can only request that the local MCP server execute that predefined secure function. The surface area for attack is virtually 0, and the deployment takes days, not months.
Which brings us to step 4. Execute in-place reasoning for CX. This is where you test the hypothesis and prove to the business that you aren't crazy.
This is the fun part.
You test Claude's ability to extract customer insights and orchestrate responses directly from the legacy ERP without the data ever touching the traditional CRM cloud.
You have to measure this relentlessly. You measure the latency. Is it returning answers in milliseconds? You measure the accuracy. Is it hallucinating, or is it accurately reading the local database?
You simulate a live customer interaction. You take a real support ticket from last week where the context lived entirely off-platform in a custom billing system.
Perfect test case.
Right. You run it through the MCP-enabled Claude instance. You validate that the model can ingest the local data schema, understand the semantic relationships between the tables, and deliver a perfectly synthesized answer to the front-end interface.
And you measure the cost. You show the CFO the cost of the API calls to Claude versus the cost of storing that entire database in the CRM cloud for a year. The math usually ends the debate immediately.
And once you prove that works, you hit the final stage. Step 5, re-architect the CX orchestration layer.
The big shift.
You move the center of gravity. If Claude Cowork can pull from local databases via MCP securely and cheaply, you redesign your CX flow to bypass the traditional CRM bottleneck entirely.
The routing logic, the intent classification, the data retrieval, the response generation, all of the intelligence moves into the reasoning engine layer. Your proprietary CRM flows, those incredibly complex visual flow builders that take weeks to modify, become redundant.
The CRM is relegated to a simple system of record. It becomes a glorified address book for the absolute bare minimum of customer contact info: name, email, phone number.
That's all it should be.
Meanwhile, the dynamic operational context, the warranties, the telemetry, the billing history remains federated, queried instantly by the AI.
This brings us to the uncomfortable truth exposed by the research, the provocation that the industry does not want to acknowledge.
Let's lay it out. Traditional CRMs are no longer acting as technology enablers. They are operating as expensive legacy data landlords.
It is an unavoidable conclusion if you look at the technical architecture. Anthropic's MCP exposes the reality that migrating data to a CRM cloud is technically obsolete for the purposes of AI reasoning.
Obsolete.
Completely. Think about the traditional CRM business model over the last decade. It relies entirely on you, the customer, believing that your local ERP data is fundamentally useless until you pay them to move it to their cloud.
They monetized our integration complexity.
They profited off your silos.
Let's push this to the absolute extreme. If the centralization mandate is dead, does this mean the multi-million-dollar traditional CRM cloud is effectively dead weight for enterprise CX? If model providers can just read the data where it natively lives securely in milliseconds, what exactly are we paying for?
You are paying for a legacy paradigm. The CRM vendors built their massive empires on the premise that they were the sole intelligent layer of the enterprise. But let's be honest about what their systems actually were.
Glorified spreadsheets.
They were essentially just deterministic rule engines. If this, then that applied to a massive centralized database. They could not reason natively, so they forced you to bring all the data to them so their rigid rules could act upon it.
But now that large language models can reason in place, at the edge, directly on the source data, that entire architecture is inverted.
Exactly. The massive centralized CRM database is an architectural dinosaur. Model providers are mounting a direct existential challenge to the traditional CRM's core profitability strategy.
The data tolls.
The era of charging exorbitant storage fees for data replication is ending. The data tolls are going to dry up.
We are closing this deep dive with 3 concrete next actions for you, the practitioner. You cannot just listen to this, go back to business as usual. Number 1, calculate the toll.
Get the numbers.
Tomorrow morning, pull the exact financial cost of your current local-to-cloud CRM data synchronization. Add up your ETL middleware licenses, your API call costs, the engineering hours spent on maintenance, and your proprietary cloud storage overages. Put a hard dollar figure on what centralization is costing your department.
Number 2, isolate a use case. Identify one critical CX workflow that is currently hampered by legacy data because that data was deemed too expensive or too complex to migrate to the CRM. Find the blind spot that is hurting your customer experience right now.
Number 3, run an MCP proof of concept. Task your platform engineering team, just 1 or 2 developers, to deploy a lightweight MCP server.
That's all it takes.
Evaluate Anthropic's Claude for direct reasoning on that specific local database. Do not ask your CRM vendor for permission. Do not ask your systems integrator to run a 6-month discovery phase. Build a prototype and test the bypass.
We leave you with this to discuss at your next architecture review, and I want you to pose this directly to your vendors. If Claude can reason directly on your legacy ERP data with 0 migration costs, 0 replication latency, and full local security control, what exactly is the ROI of the millions you are paying to store that exact same data in your traditional CRM cloud?
See you in the war room.